absent the mayor, but we do have two of us here, so we're gonna get it rolling. Also had the executive director and our legal counsel here. Thank you all for being here. The public comment period, do we have anybody signed up for public comment period today?
No, sir.
Okay, no one signed up. Okay, item number 1 on the agenda is for approval. Look over the minutes from the April 19, 2017 combined meeting, Compliance and Legislative Committee and the Finance Committee. And I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. That is unanimous. Thank you. Under discussion, item 1, pre-treatment compliance report update from Ms. Walker.
Morning, everybody. Afternoon, I guess it is now. Been a long day. I'm just gonna go over a couple of the things on the update. A lot of it's just general, just numbers change a little bit every month. There's a couple of things. On number 5, item number 5 under the update, we're having some problems with grease in our lift stations, and we're addressing those through a couple of measures. One, by visiting the restaurants and the food service establishments that generate the grease that dump into those lift stations. And 2, by also informing environmental health of those locations that are contributing if they are behind or not in compliance with their grease schedules, with their pump out schedules for their grease traps. Today, we actually have one restaurant that is temporarily closed for a few hours voluntarily for some cleaning, so that they can get all their stuff done and open back up due to them being out of compliance with us and us informing environmental health of them not being in compliance. They did get their trap pumped today, and they should have been back open. Hopefully by 2 o'clock this afternoon, they'll be back open. So we paid them a visit, and they are in compliance now with us. And we changed their pump out schedule from every 3 months to every month, so that hopefully they will not get behind again with their pump out schedules. So we're working a couple of different angles to keep that grease out of our lift stations and keep it from out of our lines so that we don't have these problems.
How do we know that it was that restaurant?
Well, this location is fairly new. There's only 4 possible sources on this lift station, and we pulled the lids on all of them. And at this location, theirs was so bad that it had popped their filter out, and the grease was going around it and going straight out of it, straight into the lift station. We paid 3 visits. The first visit, we asked them nicely to get it pumped. Went back, that was on a Thursday last week. We went back Monday, still didn't have it pumped. Monday, we contacted environmental health, informed them that they were out of compliance with joint water, informed them that they had till that night to get it pumped, and we still didn't hear anything. We went back out there today. Yesterday, they had it pumped, and we're also gonna put the $175 fee on there because we made 3 trips to that location, and even after they had it pumped, they still didn't contact us to say that it was pumped. So we had to make 3 trips to that location to verify that they had cleaned it. But I guess when environmental health went in to visit with them about them not being in compliance with us, they must have had some other issues, because there was a sign on the door that said they were closed for cleaning and that they would open back up at 2 o'clock.
Well, why is it so hard to get them to comply?
They claimed that it was a corporate issue and that it's normally just taken care of. This business is a little strange because their corporate had hired a company out of North Carolina to pump their tanks, and the company out of North Carolina hired a local company here to pump it. And he's a one-man operation who I don't think has any database or any way of keeping up with his schedules of when he's supposed to do things, and he has gotten behind. So it was the corporate thinking that their company had pumped it. the company thinking their subcontractor had pumped it, and the subcontractor dropped the ball. And no one knew it until our pump and maintenance guys went out and the lift station was full of grease. And they contacted me, and then I had to go and pull all the lids to find out where the problem was coming from.
Angela, whenever these, when we have a situation like this, and you go out the first time and tell them, what are the rules that we have in place? Do they have a certain amount of time to get it pumped?
Normally, it would be that we would send a letter giving them 10 days to get it pumped, and then if it doesn't happen, then you can send them another 5 days. But by this being a situation to where we don't have any more time with this lift station being full of grease, and by them already being out of compliance, by them being behind, then we just used it as, we have a sheet that we use that's either a consultation, a written warning, or a notice of violation. And so we used it as a written warning that you are out of compliance, and we gave them 10 days to get it done on this visit today. They had already gotten it done when I went back out there today. But when I went out last week and talked to them, I told them, you've got to get this taken care of, because we're gonna have to contact environmental health. A lot of times I use environmental health as a backup, because if they're not in compliance, then environmental health, they seem to listen to environmental health a little better than they listen to us. They don't take our power, for lack of a better word, as having much pull, because they just put us off, because our ordinances say, give them 10 days, send them a letter, 10 days, then 5 days, and.
Well, when you go out where you don't have, you make an inspection, and you see that, well, given a 10-day notice with a letter and all this, that's just not feasible, because they need to be pumped now.
Right, because we're setting ourselves up then to get a blockage in the line.
Now, what I want to ask you, have we ever had discussion with environmental health of these types of situations, when we tell a restaurant they need to be pumped like now? You know, we give you a day or so, but they need to be pumped now. That we tell the restaurant, we will today notify environmental health, and would environmental health be willing to call those same people and let them know that we just got contacted by BGJWSC, and if it's done the same day, I think that may put some pressure on them to go ahead, instead of us having to go back out for another visit.
They will, and they have actually came out with us before when we have had problems. We had a couple of places that actually had little indoor traps, and our guys came to us and said, these lines are full of grease, and it had caused a blockage, it had caused a backup and an overflow. And we went in to try to inspect this location, and they told us, no, you can't inspect it, because they were open. If you open the indoor units, it smells. And they told us no, so didn't sit well with Miss Lakeisha, but I told her we'll just contact environmental health, and they'll come and they'll help us. And so we contacted environmental health, and the lady showed up with her close sign, and she went in and she told them, either you can let Joint Water do what they need to do, or we're gonna shut you down today. And when they saw the close sign with environmental health on it, then they said, just do it. And we opened it. They had partially cleaned it. However, the tank had been bad so long, the metal had rotted, and it was letting the grease go straight through. So they had to replace their tank, and the restaurant next door had to replace their tank. This was a 2 units on the same line, and so we had to have both of them replace both of those. But environmental health came the same day. They had both of them comply. They actually took points off of both of their scores for not being in compliance with Joint Water. And I think that's what happened with this restaurant.
I think too, another thing we could bring to bear to help enforce this, not only with the grease trap, because they're not complying with the grease trap, we could go out and turn water off to the facility as well, which also brings the Department of Health back in and essentially closes the restaurant down until they are in compliance.
And so we do have a mechanism in the ordinance that if it's an emergency, we can cut the water off. And that's what we try to use in lieu. like with this instance, with this restaurant, I told them, if you don't take care of this within a couple days, I'm gonna have to cut your water off, because we cannot allow this grease to continue to get in this line, because it's gonna cause us a backup, then we're gonna have to report to the EPD. And so when you start threatening a restaurant with cutting their water off and contacting environmental health, then they act. And the girl, she was very upset, the manager, she apologized, she said, I shouldn't have to be worried about these, this is normally taken care of. And she is right. Normally with the bigger businesses, the corporate locations, they do take care of it. Their problems fell through because this company is located in North Carolina, they don't have Georgia license, they don't come to Georgia, and they contracted with a one-man operation who is good at what he does, but he has too many accounts. That's just the bottom line. He has too many accounts, and he cannot furnish all of these accounts. He's had truck trouble. He doesn't have anybody in his office saying, you've got to do these today, do these tomorrow. He has no system, and he's falling behind. And it used to be okay, but now he has so many that he cannot keep up. And it's becoming a problem. And in our rate resolution, we now have the fee of, I think it's $110 for the first visit, $175 for a second, and every other visit after that. We haven't been charging the $110 for the first visit. We try to do that as a courtesy to let them know, hey, you know, there's a problem. We don't know if it's you, your hauler, what happened, fell through the cracks, you know, but this has to be taken care of. But after we went out there, and this had to be the third visit, and it had started on the 11th, because I was informed on the 10th, and this was the 11th, I started going out there, and they still had not let me know anything. Then it became an emergency, because if that station overflows, or the lines from there overflow, then we're looking at problems with the EPD, and we don't need any of those. So I have, with those restaurants on that station, I went out, they were on quarterly, I put them all on monthly, all but one. The one restaurant, they did a good thing when they opened up, and they put in 2 big tanks. So they put in over capacity. So instead of putting in what could have been just 1,500 gallons, they put in 5,000 gallons worth of capacity. So they can go 3, 4, 5 months probably without having to pump. So they're the only ones out there that we don't have to worry about. The others are now all on 1 month schedule. Pump it, pay it. You know, then we won't have to worry about this going 6 months again like this one did, because no one paid attention to, oh, well, nobody came and pumped. And then moving down to number 9, I had hoped that we would have some of the industrial permits for us to review so that I could take them to the commission to be approved for final implementation. However, 4 are actually finished with their public review. 1 is back out for public review again because they had questioned it. And now we have 1 more being questioned by an industry, and they're requesting another meeting with us. So I've instructed them to plan a meeting with Mr. Boland so he can give them the final yay or nay if we're going to change it. Hopefully that'll take place sometime this week or next week, and we can finally get all of these finalized by July. I don't want to do 1 or 2 and then have to come back to the commission and do 1 or 2 more, and I want to do them all at one time, so that the commission doesn't have to look at 1 or 2 this week, 1 or 2 the next week, and have different dates for all of them to be approved, and have to do this again in a couple of years for approval again.
What is a stumbling block?
With this particular industry, formaldehyde seems to be the main stumbling block. We reviewed it, we met with them, and I gave them their final draft and told them that it was going out for public review. No one bothered to review it, as far as I can tell, until their last couple of days that they had to review it. And then they sent me an email saying, is this still with the consultants for review? did they look at our revisions and make any changes? And I said, I sent you this 3 weeks ago. In fact, I forwarded the email that I had sent them saying it was out for public review. And I said, I sent you this weeks ago and let you know that this was out for public review. And I didn't get any response. And, oh, well, no one changed the formaldehyde and other things. And can we request another meeting to review this again? So I spoke to Mr. Boland, and I spoke to the industry. I requested that they send me a final list of what are the sticking points that they just think they cannot live without, and I have not heard anything else from them. So it's just a delayed tactic, I believe. They've done this for 2 years. Not only them, but a couple of the others. Another one of the industries, when I went out to inspect them a few weeks ago for their yearly inspection, I told them, I said, I suppose everything was good with your final draft because I haven't heard anything, and it went out for public review, and they said, well, I sent it to our corporate headquarters for the people to do the numbers, and I'm waiting for them to respond, and I'll let you know when they get back to me. Okay.
Well, now, do we have a permanent limit on formaldehyde?
We do. And one thing with the formaldehyde, it's actually a problem for workers in the area. Now, Mr. Riles has went, and I wish he had made it, there was like a three-story station that this industry's influent came into, or their effluent came into our plant as an influent. This station, the workers would go in to pull a sample, the operators and the maintenance personnel had to go into. And I went and bought these little badges that would let you know if the formaldehyde levels was high. And we even bought gas monitoring masks that you could put on to keep you from breathing the formaldehyde. But Mr. Riles spoke to Kirk Young the other day about rerouting the pipes that go into there so that it would no longer go in that station. So the formaldehyde may be a non-issue in the future, but at the moment, with it going through that station and the maintenance personnel and the operators having to go in that station, it is a worker hazard. They're saying they can't meet the limits. And they've never had it on the permit before, so. But I know that Mr. Riles and Mr. Young are working on rerouting those pipes to where they don't have to go in there. I know that the maintenance personnel have been using the mask and the gauges that I bought because they came and picked them up. That's our people. They came and picked them up and put them in their refrigerator, the gauges, so that they could use them if they have to go in there. And if it gets to a certain level, it will alert them to let them know they have to vacate and not be in the unit.
So is the permitted level based on the safety of our employees, or is that what can't go through the plant according to?
It's based on safety levels from what Brown and Caldwell has told me. It's not based on any limit as far as water quality. It's based on what will leach out into the air in confined spaces.
We hope to have those pipes rerouted.
That sounds like what we need to do. I mean, have they always been producing this level of formaldehyde?
I think so, and I think, and to tell you the truth, the station has smelled a lot better in the last few months. And they did a study on the levels, and they had people come in from the outside and do a study that showed that there was no danger to anybody working in the area. They came to our plant and did a study, had scientists or laboratory personnel come in and show that by the time it gets to our plant, even though their levels are higher there, that by the time it gets to our plant, the levels are low enough that there is no danger to employees, but we base the reports on what levels are leaving their facility. And that's what their permits are written on, is what's leaving their facility. So they did go the extra mile and do testing and did a study to prove that those limits are not harming our employees. But my concern was, what if those limits are higher? What if they send a higher limit, something gets loose in the plant, or their limits are higher one day, and something higher than that comes through that we're not aware of, and we've got people working in there that day. That was the problem. But since we've had these discussions, that's when Mr. Riles started the operators from taking a sample somewhere else, so they no longer sample there. And the only personnel who even go in that station at the moment are the maintenance personnel. And if they reroute those pipes and those valves, then no one will have to go in that station.
Okay.
Sounds like you got a game plan to do something about it. Okay, is that your report?
Only two short things. The number 10, we're working on revisions to the water use ordinances, so we can try to get all of those out at one time to the city and county to try to get those approved for more up-to-date, user-friendly ordinances. And the last thing is, I have a yearly pre-treatment report due to the EPD by May 31st. I'll be getting that to Mr. Junkin next week so he can look over it and sign it, and we can get that to Mr. Hawthorne at the EPD by the end of this month.
Okay. Anybody got any questions? Ms. Walker?
I only had one. I know that human exposure has been the focus of most of the discussion. We have a problem with formaldehyde creating a problem in the treatment plant actually being able to treat our wastewater. Do we know of any?
I don't know of any, and I don't even think that we test for that unless it's maybe in our annual priority pollutants. I think would be the only time that we test for
them, but I'm just curious if, they've discharged, we're having an upset in the plant.
I don't think
No?
so.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 2, legislative considerations for SPLOST. Jimmy?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in a lot of the discussions we've had the last few months, we talked about the financial position of the utility, and certainly we've looked at funding, and we know that we're short of a lot of the things we need to do. We're probably programs and resources we need even for day-to-day operations that we're short on, but we can't fund. We've got a minimal funding for our R&R capital program, our rehab and replacement program to invest in the stuff that's already out there. I think at the last finance committee meeting, we talked about how we needed 140-something million, and we're going to be able to fund like 12 or 15 million out of our plan. And a big chunk of that money, then, if we do the borrowing we need to get the treatment plants at Dunbar and at Academy Creek, as well as some gravity lines that will facilitate the full implementation of the SPLOST projects, we're going to eat up probably the balance of our borrowing capacity with maybe just a little bit to spare, but certainly a major borrowing will be out of the question once we do this in the coming few months, if the commission allows it. That, along with the fact that it's pushing our rates to an extreme, we're at the point where I would say national standards or measurements of metrics of benchmarks of affordability, we're pushing towards the upper limits. We're losing room to work to fund some of these needs. In terms of tap fees, even if we go to the full cost of tap fees calculated by our accountants, we're still working with them to kind of drill down to what that number, hard number is, because they had to make some assumptions that we want to test before we come out and say, this is the number. But in any event, it looks like even tap fees are being pushed upwards. And if everybody paid the higher tap fees, we're not going to fund at the level, at the rate we need to create reserves and do the things we need to do with expansion. Today, I just want to bring that to the committee's attention so that we can be considering in 3.5 years, SPLOST goes away. But it really isn't that long in certain regards, because as we go through and prepare for what we're going to do to try to get either another SPLOST or, in my preference, maybe even legislative action to dedicate a penny of sales tax to this utility for 5 years, inject for 5 years approximately $100 million, that would get us to the point where we could levelize our rate increases. Maybe we could talk about where we're at with tap fees and start to either peel them back or hold them down so that we don't have a negative influence on local businesses and growth. I guess the thing we need to be aware of at this point is, I believe state legislative action might be an opportunity to meet that need in a couple of years. But we're going to have to, as a community, my sense is that local elected officials such as yourself are going to have to make a strong case for support to our state representatives, starting in the immediate future, to lay the groundwork for the long term. So I wanted to bring it to the committee's attention, to the commission's attention, that we may need to start formulating plans to, work with the elected commissioners as well as state legislative delegation to lay the groundwork for what we can do in a couple of 3 years. And again, while SPLOST may be out there, and I know there's a lot of verbal commitment to supporting the commission and getting a lot of the next SPLOST in our, SPLOST still has a lot of political issues tied to it, and there'll be a lot of different agendas in there, just like there was this last time. And I don't want to put all my eggs in that one basket, because I know there'll be people up there fighting for things, and there might even be some elected officials who would believe it's the right thing not to have SPLOST fund anything for the Joint Water and Sewer Commission. It may be that we need some kind of a dedicated assistance if we're going to meet our near-term and long-term needs. So I wanted to bring that up today to get you guys thinking about it.
Yeah. If I read this, legislative considerations for SPLOST, are you talking about seeing if our local delegation would be interested in allowing joint water sewer to do its own SPLOST?
Or some means of
Or
a
something.
tax of a penny for, and again, I'm thinking 5 years doesn't really hit the knock it in the head.
I don't know what the answer is. My guess is, I'm going to give you my guess, since it's a tax, I don't think you get that because it's your local government can only tax.
Right, that would take I believe it would take a constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
It'd be easier to just.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just a simple legislative action.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
You're
it's-
talking about taxing. You're
That is-
talking about, and the thing is, once they give you that authority, see, they gotta be,
Yeah.
if they're first one, they gotta be darn sure because you may want to exercise it for another one, and another one.
Well,
And so they're very, I think the law is very, very clear on, taxing, school board can't, school board can do a SPLOST.
But that's specifically,
But that's a whole different animal,
Statute.
and that's, but in the school board can, we actually tax on behalf of the school board. The school board doesn't tax, okay? We actually do that. They can't go out and tax community. But we have to build their village rate into ours, combine them with what we bill it by. But I don't know what can be done, but I tell you, I think we need to talk to them and explore every option because, we only have so many avenues to go down, fund this operation. And,
We really, Mr. Chairman, we really, I believe, just about skinned the cat every way that can be done within the commissions, the Joint Water and Sewer Commission's abilities to track down special fees for people that get special services. I think the next go-around, you're gonna see with that's gonna be discussed here in the meeting in a few minutes, the rate structure, we're gonna go after development review fees and inspections for private development. Something that the ratepayers have been, carrying on their shoulders for forever and ever. We're gonna try to push back like the county has done for a review of plans for new developments and those kind of things, new businesses. We're gonna, at this point, offer rate structures set, but we've chased all those down. I think there may be one other opportunity to look at possibly a fixed portion of our bill that's outside the abilities of the Joint Water and Sewer Commission to add to make sure that the folks that are absent for months at a time or have vacancies in their rental properties, we still got to make sure the water and sewer is available, whether they're there or not. So there's a piece of our operational costs or not. We're going to be talking about that and probably looking at that this coming year. But
well,
we've done those things.
what we're gonna need to do, just to lay the groundwork for the next loss that the county may want to do, all this aside, to just be prepared to, in the effort to make the case that joint water and sewer should get a share of the next loss, the county. Everything you have said here today and been saying, that's going to have to be part of what they hear. And they may need to hear that once a year for the next 2.5, 3 years, in a work session we talked about. That's why I bring this up. When you go over, make a presentation, part of that's going to have to include the future. And that, just the things you said here today, it would really be nice if the commissioners would, think of going over to some of the next cost if they're able to get one passed. And that's really going to be a function of, if we manage this one, well, if we do, and we are, I can tell you, we're going to spend the money on just what we said we were going to spend the money on. We're going to have an oversight committee. But if we do that, I think we'll be in a good position to get another SPOS pass. And it'll be up to us to go over and educate them, let them know what we're doing, where our money's coming from, and all the areas where we can get money from, if we're tapped out or just about tapped out, but here's our needs that we don't have funded for in the SPOS. It'd be nice to get, everything we can in the SPOS. I mean, that discussion has got to be had with them.
And we just, again, when the county commission, I guess the mayor's not here today, but the city commission as well, if they have a workshop or a convenient time we could plan to come through, I think that'd be a great opportunity.
Yeah. And just so, while we're talking about that, when it comes to a SPOS, that is a Glynn County Board of Commissioners thing. Okay. We're not the only party to it.
No, that's
The
why I
city's
included
party,
the mayor.
but it's really up to us. We decide if we can do it. I mean, if we can move forward and put one out to the public to vote on and approve, hopefully they'll approve. And the city will get a certain percentage based on population. Okay, that's how they can, we give them anything above that. We can't give them anything below, I think it's now 19-point-some%, I'm not sure. But anyhow, we can give them anything above that. But this splosh, for instance, how we've broken down the monies, that were, just to give you a big picture, the city's gonna get all of their
19%.
they're gonna get every bit, they go to city projects. The rest of the money that county, 15 million to joint water sewer, which is how we do that. Okay, 15 million, doesn't come out of the city portion, they get all theirs. Some of that 15 million, 3 something, going in the city, okay? So it's going back into the city, it's joint water sewer, but it's joint water sewer projects in the city. But anyhow, we take 15 million of our share, joint water sewer. 3 million of our share we get to Jekyll, because they're SPOS taxes collected over there, and we get them. And we think it's on, we don't have to get them any. But we do, it's only fair thing to do, so we try. Good example, I think, might be with us trying to be as fair as we can to everybody. The city wanted us, the rest of that goes county projects. Well, the IJ block that we have, that previous commission thought we built a jail on, never did build a jail on it, got that spot. The city wanted us to do a city park there. So we got $1.5 million of our county money, we would put it, make a city park in the city. So there's some drainage in the city at Magnolia Bar, $1 million project. We're gonna fund that for them. See, the city's not getting just 19. The improvements that are going on in the city, and I'm not here to be, I'm gonna give you a picture how I think the county and the county commissioners look at the entire community.
I understand.
And I think there'll be, you make a good case. I would think you can have pretty much the same commissioners.
And that's why I make that.
I think it's gonna be a good.
I don't doubt that the county commission will be fair and equitable. My concern would be that the needs here are much greater than what the commission will be able to. By the time the politics of what the city needs, what Jekyll Island needs, what the Board of Education needs, what the county really needs, and then what we need all come into play in this possible next SPLOS.
Still gonna take more money.
I mean, we're gonna be back at the trough, waiting for another 3-4 years to move again.
Well, what we need to do, I agree with you, we need to talk with our legislative folks.
I don't know what can be done, whether they can limit the powers to one-term badge. I mean, I understand there's constitutional issues. There would also be some operating agreement issues. I think we talked when we talked previous to this meeting. But, in the long run, if it takes 2 or 3 years to make some of those changes, I know some of the other utilities, one of the things that was explained to me was that if the utility provides 3 services, you could, in fact, collect taxes. We only provide 2. Is it a case where if you provide a core infrastructure or utility, could we get the state to approve that? And I'm not looking to, have a perpetual penny like Atlanta does, but we need pretty substantial bump in the relatively near future to keep the boat afloat till things kind of catch up and maybe there's some growth in
The penny gets you about $20 million a year right now.
That's right. That's why I say 5 years, you get $100 million, and the most urgent of our needs will be tackled. And that's without killing our ratepayers, which again, they're at the end of their limit nearly. Or at least the end that, people out there in the regulatory world deem to be what is affordable. But we appreciate any help, and I'll be glad to come through and make the case of what our situation is and our needs, and our long-term goals.
All right, well, I think the thing we need to concentrate on then as far as, legislative side is really getting hold of our delegations, and let them know what we're missing, because it can take the state forever. I mean, you talk.
That's why I'm thinking,
If there's
no
something
time
that
like
can
the
be
present.
done, we need to look at.
Well, maybe I need to come see you guys before we see the state legislature.
Yeah, okay, all right. That all you have, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Item 3, under discussion, rate resolution. Mr. Donahue?
It's kind of some of the changes in the verbiage in here.
Commissioners, you have in your packages a version of this that we printed out this morning. It has changed in a couple of spots since then. This is the 2017-18 rate resolution. Also put the what the 2016-17 rates were over to the side for comparison purposes. The first section is the usual user charges, industrial charges, septic tank haulers, fire protection. Section 4, planning and construction, is an addition this year to the rate resolution in order to be able to recapture some of the planning and construction divisions costs that are incurred in plan review and working with developers. This is the verbiage for that. We're working with the senior engineer in developing the actual set of charges that will apply. He happens to be out of town this week, so we will get that filled in and hopefully finished up in the next couple of weeks to include in this draft. Again, this is draft. This will go to the commission at the last meeting in June for approval, so it's slightly changed from any time from here to there.
Why don't you explain real quick how the retainer fee is going to work?
What we envision happening is that when a developer comes in or a project comes in, that we will estimate the number of man hours that it will take for plan review, for the site review, for inspections and all of the various activities that take place from the time it starts until the CO is issued on that, when the project is finished, and have the developer put a deposit on that, or a retainer of sorts, and then we'll charge against that at standard costs for various levels of staff positions, travel, and that type of thing, and out-of-pocket costs. And then should the fees not add up to the total retainage or the total retainer by the time the project's done, that would be refunded. If we start running over in those fees, there would be an additional billing for that.
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
The capital improvement fees, this was slated to originally as a phase-in last year. The amounts included in this rate resolution of $2,400 and $4,800 for water and sewer respectively are the full fees that we had anticipated phasing in 2019. We're accelerating that phase-in in this proposal. The connection for fire fees, this is fire lines, unmetered fire lines running into buildings. We haven't changed that as yet. We may need to look at those costs. The remainder of that section remained pretty much unchanged. Operational and installation fees unchanged. Section 7, meter replacement costs, is a new section in the rate resolution this year. And there are basically two conditions here where meters would be removed from service addresses. The first being when a property has no customer of record for 3 consecutive billing
You
cycles.
call that section 7?
It's
It's section 7 here. The copy you have is probably 6.
Okay.
And we've added a couple.
Okay.
Janice
So I
wanted,
listened to you.
Janice wanted to print it off earlier this morning, so we've made changes since, so it doesn't exactly line up.
There's
As long as you know what I'm looking at.
I'm looking up at the screen with the latest ones. We have 2 conditions where meters would be removed. The first being service addresses where there has been no customer of record, meaning no one to bill, and it's been in that condition for 3 consecutive reading cycles. We would go out and remove the meter. If the owner or someone else comes in within 6 months, there would be a $500 charge to replace that meter. If it's not replaced within 6 months, we would jump down to paragraph C that we'll cover in just a second. This is really an incentive for, especially for landlords to come in to put the service in their name where an apartment or some other building may be vacant for months at a time and has service provided to it. We read the meters and all of the other things associated with that, but there's nobody to contribute to the revenues of the Joint Water and Sewer Commission during that time. The second case is where buildings are demolished. Normally, when somebody is demolishing a building, we try to encourage them to keep the meter at that location because and protect it, either put balusters around it or somehow or other block it off so it won't be damaged during the demolition process. Because they typically need some water for cleanup, dust control, and that type of thing. And eventually, they will need water service for reconstruction at that location. So if we take it out and it's out less than 6 months, we would have a $500 fee to replace that meter. Now, in either case of the meter being removed from the service address for more than 6 months, we would charge for the installation as we would for the installation of a new meter. And this, we had 2 cases just this week of service addresses where the meter had been removed, one 3 and one over 5 years ago for demolition, and the owners came in and wanted a new meter replaced. First of all, they were 5/8 meters that were no longer put in the ground, so their service laterals were too small for the meter, for a 1-inch meter. We have to go out and assess whether the lateral is still serviceable, whether the cleanout is still serviceable, and so on. So it involves just as much work as setting a new meter in most cases.
Well, I guess, let me ask, given the case specific that you talked about, is the $500 what we would normally charge for a new meter?
No, sir, the $500 is just a fee to cover our costs of going out, taking the meter out of the ground, and the administrative cost of removing that meter from the billing system,
Charge-
putting it
oh,
back
so
into the billing system.
In the case you just talked about, they would get, it would be a whole new meter
Yes,
installation.
when it's been out of
Based
the
on the
ground.
curtain, okay, I understand.
When it's been out of the
My
ground
mistake.
6 months or more, it's probably going to need some work to get it back in again.
Okay.
And then finally, and this is included in the ordinance actually, but if stated it here as well, is that meters that are damaged will be replaced at the cost of the meter, labor, and other materials, and installation costs. This is when somebody drives over their meter or somehow or other damages the meter. It is in the ordinance, but I wanted to make that explicit in the rate resolution as well. The REU section remains unchanged as the hydrant meters, payment fees, and those are the major changes in the verbiage of the rate resolution. In the comparative fee schedule, again, this is as current year rates in the 2017 rate, our current rates and proposed rates here. You see we've added a capital improvement transfer fee. This is where a developer comes in, pays fees on lot A, B, and C in their development, and then decides they want to sell A, B, and E, so we have to move the fees and all of the other accounts set up from one parcel to another. And that takes, in our system, it takes well over an hour to close one, open another one, transfer all of the fees, and do all of the background work that it takes to do that through our systems. Other new fees, those are pretty much the same: inspection fees, permitting fees. The section on on-site sanitary sewer systems is new in the rate chart, and I will defer to the chairman or executive director to discuss this.
I'll make a few comments on it. Basically, this is taking into account the possibility that we may be asked to do some private sewer system maintenance at some point. At this point, our position is it'll be a very unusual circumstance, and that last line says whether JWSC may legally service any on-site system will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We'll just have to look at the application of the devices and who's being served. Is there a public purpose in servicing that? But we wanted to get pricing in any event, just in case.
The balance of the comparative fee schedule remains the same as last year, with the exception of some price increases. We do have a start to a plan and construction fee schedule, and again, this is still very much a work in process. And then we have the REU table that we'll be working with Tiffany Kiner on to see if she has categories that need to be added to this or subtracted or modified in some way. Any questions, comments, additions, deletions?
Any got any questions?
John, I've got a minor revision, but we'll talk about that.
Again, this is going to be a very dynamic document right up until the time it's passed, I believe. If there are comments, questions, changes, please forward them to me, and I'll get them incorporated into the document.
I just say there's like a lot going on there. When's the, I guess some more work is being done to get everything finalized, and when's the completion date, expected completion date?
First, the notices are going out in customers' bills now with the 2 town hall meetings that will be held on June 14th and 19th, I believe. So those will be held, and we'll have a week or 10 days for any final revisions coming out of those meetings. And this will come back to the commission for approval along with the budget at the anticipated special call meeting the last Thursday of June to adopt both budget and support the schedule.
Yeah, just thinking about it, we need to have the draft or the town hall meeting presentation the first commission meeting in June as to what you all plan to present and how you're going to present it to the town hall meetings.
Yes, sir. We'll start pulling up last year's and dusting it off. As an aside to the rate resolution itself, our financial analyst Nisha Salins is at a training in Dalton, Georgia tomorrow. She's leaving today for it to incorporate asset, the focus of this is incorporating asset management into rate setting. It's largely a rate setting seminar, so we can take some of this, bring some more of our abilities to look at how our rates are established in-house a little bit more than it has been, and it'll be a good learning experience for her.
We're going to become a lot more self-sufficient in understanding the rates.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, executive director's update.
I don't have anything additional at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. If you don't have anything additional, then I'm going to say this meeting is adjourned.
Sounds good to me.
Good.